And as of yesterday, the city officially unveiled the next voice to take up this distinguished mantle. That name is Jessica Care Moore, who's a lifelong Detroiter and award-winning poet. As Poet Laureate, the city says Moore will compose poems for special events and make poetry accessible to residents of all ages. To learn more about her vision for the role and the power of poetry, she joins us now, Poet Laureate.
Oh my God.
Jessica Care Moore.
I love you, Nick.
Thanks
you
for
so
joining
much.
us on the Metro.
What's up, Tia?
What's up?
It's so good to see y'all. And I'm a little tired and a little stuffy. It was a long, beautiful, magical day yesterday.
It did seem like it, so I know I'm not the first, but let me make sure to give you your congratulations, and let's just start there. How does it feel to be named Poet Laureate?
It's amazing. I know it's funny. I made a joke when at the press conference yesterday that people have been calling me that for a long time.
I remember accidentally doing it during the interview.
People did it, and they did it when Naomi Long Madgett was live. And so I was always correcting, saying, no, Naomi Long Madgett is the Poet Laureate. And I loved her dearly, and she was a mentor and someone I knew since I was probably about 19 or 20 years old, doing workshops at Broadside Press. So it's a kind of a full circle moment, not to be cliche-ish, but it kind of is. And this year's a special year. It's the centennial of my father's life. He would have been 100 years old in 2024. Believe it or not, my daddy was born in 1924, and so I knew this year was going to be powerful in different ways, and things have been shifting for me very fast in this year. And I think that spiritually, my daddy is connected to some of that. He's on the cover of my first book. And I brought, yesterday, it's funny, I came in, I went to the podium and I had all these books with me for no reason. I was like, I just want to bring all these books because I'm a super nerd. But that's my dad. You can't see, well, you can see it if you're, it's my dad on the cover of my first book. And so, when things like this happen to me, I completely just go back to my father and he's not here. And I wish my daddy could see me now. So it's deep. I'm a little black girl from Cody High School, and that's what's amazing to me is what I hope it shows other young girls, especially in the city, that anything is possible. That you can actually become something very important in the world. Coming out of Detroit Public Schools.
Yeah, well, working with the youth is going to be important. Can I see the book really quickly,
Which
if that's
one?
all right?
My
This
first
one
book?
that you referred to. Because
1997.
1997, first published book, The Words Don't Fit in My Mouth. It has you looking like a stylized Statue of Liberty I see there, and your dad kind of in the background. So that's nice that people can learn about. But that means poetry has been pretty important to you for a while.
Yeah.
Before we get into that story, let's just talk broadly about the city of Detroit. Why do you think poetry is so important for a city like us here in Motown?
This is a city full of vibrant, beautiful black folks, and interesting, cool white folks, right? And a beautiful, they cool. I probably say that the white folks in Michigan and Detroit are like the coolest white people in the world. They black too, and we have a beautiful Arab population. I grew up on the border of Dearborn, so I grew up around people who are from Lebanon and Iran, and Southwest is amazing. We have a Mexican community here, and so I think people don't see our city as the international city that it is, and I want to change that with this position. I want to have an international poetry festival, and because we're connected to all these movements, civil rights movements, and we're definitely connected to the literary tradition. I'm a baby of Broadside Press. I'm a child of Dudley Randall's work, and I knew who these people were before I moved to New York City. So what made me be able to start a press in 1997 was my tutelage here. Ron Allen. I was sitting up in Ron Allen's little cafe above Cass Cafe when I was in my early 20s, learning about black institution building. And that's why we have to have poets that come out of a place called Detroit. Hakeem Adabuti, Don Ellie, the biggest black publisher in the country, if not in the world, out of Chicago, is from Detroit. Yes. And so one of my mentors, he wrote the foreword to my book, God is Not an American, and has been in my life my entire career. And so because we have this rich tradition of literary and oral tradition, we need to be pushing and investing in the next.
All right. Well, let's unpack that a little bit, right? Because there are a lot of different arts out there. In fact, you participate in many doing Black Women Rock. But we know that I think a lot would say you got your big break with Showtime at the Apollo, winning that on stage with your poetry, ends up linking up with the folks like Common and Erica, and I could say all these names, right? Yeah. But that starts from a place where you decide poetry is the art form that I think you'd say you started with. So what led you to be attracted with that medium for your art?
I mean, I've been writing poems since I was about 9 or 10, because my son King started writing around 7 and, published his first book, his chapbook, when he was 9 because I saw it. I was aware as a mom and a poet. I was very dreamy as a young person. And so poetry was a easy, accessible art form. That's why I know it's powerful. I wasn't necessarily going through novels, but I was going through Alice Walker books. My mother was giving me Lorraine Hansberry, Young, Gifted, and Black. I loved Maya Angelou. I loved Nikki Giovanni. These are people that I read about, and poetry just spoke to me as a young Black girl in Detroit in a way. I mean, I read everybody now. I read Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass, Robert Frost. I mean, I learned about all of them in school, Shakespeare. I loved Emily Dickinson. I thought she was cool. She didn't want to come out of her room. That was weird. I liked it. Sylvia Plath, and so poetry was just an accessible. I mean, I'm a great reader, and I was good at other types of writing, but poetry felt like something I could take in easily, and I could understand it. And it was just in my body. I feel like I've just been catching up with myself. I've just meant to be a poet. And poetry is not just about, and I said this yesterday, pretty words on paper. It's about how you see the world. It's about how you see the world.
Well, let's get into that then also, because I think I took jazz poetry in high school.
Come on now.
And I would tell you that I was probably pretty bad at it. I was the only one in there who was like, I'm rhyming every single one of these words. And, my teacher's like, Nick, you don't have to rhyme. And I'm like, it's a challenge. I'm rhyming it. But for you, rhymes clearly aren't the thing that's going to make a great poem. So as someone who's experienced all these different styles, what would you say, especially to people out there who are trying to level up their poetry, what makes a great poem?
What makes a great poem? It's a great honesty, authenticity. I mean, being honest. I tell people, if you're reading it and I don't believe you, then it's not a good poem. Gotta believe you. If you're writing some fictional tale, fine. But if you're actually writing a poem from your heart, and I'm looking at you like, is this your truth? So, it's got to be honest.
Maybe that's what I got. Why I got that C-. You
better tell your truth. Well, I can say this, and it's no offense to male poets, but male poets I find often hide inside their work, whereas women poets, we put everything on our sleeve. Like you read my books, you know my business. I've been married, divorced, in love, out of love, had children. I tell my stories from a very authentic, loving place. And it's not always easy stories. I've told my hard stories, my heartbreaks. They're all in my poems, and that's what makes it a healing mechanism.
How is it different doing it through poetry as opposed through a song or through a story, a novel? All these different mediums, but poetry is like this merger of these different kind of things. So
I think poetry is like a balance of like gift and craft, and it's also for me a spiritual work. But I also feel it with music. Let me just say this. Like when I'm doing my Black Tea record that I wrote with John Dixon, that record is amazing. And so when I have poetry with that jazz quartet, with Nate Wynn and Deshaun Jones and Sax Appeal and Idea singing and blues singing, like there's definitely something transformational that's happened. And we like put on clinics at like the Jazz Festival in Kansas City and at Blue Note. Like people had never even seen poetry, probably since Gil Scott-Heron working audience and touching people in that way. And so, I'm a music artist, so I believe in all that. I believe in being interdisciplinary for sure. But everything is a poem, because I always say I can take out the band. I love my musicians, but I can actually, they can all be quiet and I can take over just my voice alone can take over the room. And this is from a little girl who was scared to raise her hand in junior high school, because I went to St. Alphonsus with predominantly white students, and I had a very deep voice. This voice was this voice in like 7th, 5th and 6th grade, and so I never wanted to read aloud. So it's a confidence that I had to build into. And then like even that jazz record, Black Tea, I felt like I had to get old enough to be mature enough to make a jazz record. Because I didn't grow up really listening to jazz. I had to find jazz later, and so.
Oh, you live long enough, you're going to find jazz.
Oh, jazz is, I love it. What if you want to call it jazz, you know what I mean? All my jazz artists in quotes, like Russell Gunn, they kind of like Kebby Williams, they rebel even against the title. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's a purity in poetry, and I just like that when things it's a working, haiku for me is a revolutionary tool. Haiku is like a working class form that folks can connect to. I can get little kindergarten, preschool kids to write a haiku. And so it's something that I plan to do. There's like things that you read off that I'm supposed to do, like as a poet laureate, like do this address at the library and all that. And I'm going to do that with ease. But the things I want to do have to do with younger people and empowering them. And I have a whole campaign called Detroit Love Haiku that I want to sprinkle on the city. So I want haiku everywhere. I want all of y'all to write haiku for me. I want to put it in books on bus stations.
With haiku, that's at 575?
575. There you go.
Oh,
see,
right.
we got a poet in the house. I got to see these poems after. You got to email me some of these jazz poems, Nick.
Take that C minus.
Yeah, I just
turn it into a B+.
Jump in there. The first time I saw you perform, it was at the Car Center, and you did powerful performance. And I just remember that was one of the first times I said, I can actually openly out my mouth say I'm proud to be a Black woman. So I thank you for that.
Oh, wow. It's amazing.
So that was one of those moments that I can do this if someone else is doing it.
That's
so
right.
Thank you so much for that. And we get to have you as the Poet Laureate now.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm hoping that I can do a lot of great things with it. I didn't need anything else on my resume.
Yeah.
And so I want to get to work.
All right. Well, we got to let you get back to work. But before we do, about 30 seconds, you mentioned the international plan. What else do you have planned to do? Or what do you got coming forward that you can tell us about?
Oh, my feature film is it's very poetry driven. Is premiering at the American Black Film Festival. Shout out to my director Qasim Vasir and my dear friends who've worked on this film. The crew and cast are amazing. Tobias Trevelyan, Donnell Rawlings, Nikki Gilbert, who was in that Black Box Theater with me at Cody High School that changed my life. She's the lead singer of Brownstone. Y'all should know who Nikki is. And so we're headed there June 12th to the 16th. We don't have our premiere date yet, but that's happening in Miami. And then we're going to have a screening, absolutely, in Detroit.
All right. Well,
this summer. So.
Looking forward to that. Looking forward to your work. Detroit's newest poet laureate, Jessica Caremore. Thanks for joining us on the Metro.
Anytime.
Yay.